Asterisk beneath the cold earth, a hollow pulse had waited patiently for years.
Something's down there.
When Caleb opened the small metal box, what lay inside was not an unknown secret, but a faded photograph and a set of dog tags. The name etched into the metal belonged to someone from another life, a man he had forced himself to forget. That quiet, rhythmic pulse suddenly aligned with his own heartbeat, awakening a past he thought was buried forever. What exactly had the storm brought back tonight? Asterisk, they say storms don't just wash things away, sometimes, they bring something back. The rain fell hard against the rusted roof of Caleb Mercer's old pickup, each drop tapping like a memory he had tried to forget. Parked off a quiet county road somewhere outside Mill Creek, he sat still behind the wheel, watching the world blur into gray streaks. At 40, Caleb carried the kind of silence that didn't come from peace, but from things left unsaid for too long. His knuckles rested lightly on the steering wheel, rough and weathered, as if even stillness required effort. Then it came again. A faint, hollow sound beneath the storm. Not thunder. Not wind. Something slower. Rhythmic. Like a dull knock buried under layers of earth. Caleb frowned, tilting his head slightly. He had learned, years ago, to listen when something didn't feel right. Outside, the cold air smelled of wet soil and iron. He stepped out, boots sinking slightly into the mud, jacket pulling tight against the wind. That's when he saw it. Near a crooked wooden post, half hidden by tall grass and rain, a shape trembled. A dog. A German shepherd, its coat soaked through, ears low but alert, eyes fixed on him with a quiet intensity that felt almost familiar. A frayed rope hung loose from its collar, dragging in the dirt like it had been left there for hours, maybe longer. The dog didn't bark. Didn't move. It simply watched him, as if it had been waiting for this exact moment.
Something's down
Caleb
there.
took a slow step forward, the strange knocking sound echoing once more beneath his feet. And somehow, he knew, this was only the beginning. Nothing in his life had felt this deliberate. Caleb moved closer, slow and steady, lowering himself just enough so he would not tower over the animal. Rain slid down the brim of his cap, dripping onto the mud between them. Easy now, he murmured, his voice rough from disuse but gentle in a way that surprised even him. The German shepherd's ears twitched at the sound, not in fear, but in recognition, as if the tone carried something familiar. Its chest rose and fell in shallow breaths, yet there was strength beneath the exhaustion, something unbroken. Caleb reached out, stopping just short of contact, giving the dog a choice. For a long second, the world seemed to narrow to that single moment, rain fading into a distant hush. Then the dog stepped forward. Not much, just enough for its wet nose to brush against his fingers. The contact was brief, but it carried weight, like a quiet agreement neither of them needed to explain. Caleb exhaled slowly, a tension he had carried for years easing without permission. He slipped off his jacket and draped it carefully over the dog's back, the fabric already damp but warmer than the storm. The rope at its collar came loose with a gentle tug, no resistance, no fight, as if whatever had held it here had already let go. "You are not staying here," Caleb said softly, more promise than statement. The dog watched him closely, amber eyes steady, then turned its head slightly toward the dark ground nearby. Its gaze fixed there, unmoving. Caleb followed the line of sight, feeling it again, that faint, hollow knocking beneath his boots. Slower now. Clearer. Waiting. The sound came again, faint but steady, rising through the soaked earth like a signal that refused to be ignored. Caleb shifted his weight, pressing his boot more firmly into the mud, and this time he felt it, a subtle vibration traveling upward through the sole, deliberate and measured. The dog stepped beside him, no longer trembling, its posture alert now, ears angled forward as if tuning into something deeper than sound. Rain continued to fall, but it seemed distant, secondary to whatever pulsed beneath them. Caleb crouched low, brushing aside wet grass with his bare hand, fingers sinking into the cold soil. The scent of iron grew stronger there, mixed with something older, something
You're a good
closed
dog.
off for a long
Don't
time.
worry, this'll keep you
The
warm.
dog let out a
We'll
single,
get through
low
this.
breath, not a warning, but a quiet insistence.
Almost got it.
Caleb glanced at it, then back to the ground.
Just a little more pressure.
All right, he whispered,
Okay.
though he did not know what he was agreeing to. He reached
Looks
into
like
the
it's
bed of
clearing
his
up,
truck
boy.
and pulled out a small folding shovel, the metal worn smooth from
Yeah,
years
looks
of
like
use.
it.
Each movement felt familiar, almost automatic, like a memory his body remembered before his mind could question it. He drove the edge into the earth, pushing down with steady force, turning over the first layer of mud. The sound beneath grew clearer with each inch, not louder, but closer, as if whatever lay below had been waiting patiently for someone to listen. The dog circled once, then stopped at a precise spot, placing one paw against the ground. Caleb followed that exact point and dug again. This time, the shovel struck something solid. A dull, hollow note echoed upward. He froze, breath caught somewhere between doubt and recognition. And for the first time in a long while, Caleb felt that strange pull again, the feeling that he had not just arrived here by chance. The metal surface was just beneath the mud, cold and unyielding under the edge of the shovel. Caleb cleared more of the soil with his hands now, pushing aside wet clumps until a rectangular outline began to take shape. It was not large, maybe 3 feet across, with a faint seam running along its edges like a lid sealed long ago. Rainwater pooled in a shallow depression, tracing the lines as if revealing something meant to stay hidden. The dog stood close, watching every movement, its breathing steady, its focus unwavering. Caleb wiped his hands against his jeans and leaned back slightly, studying what lay before him. There was no marking, no sign, nothing to explain why something like this would be buried here, miles from anything that resembled a home. Yet the sound, that steady, hollow rhythm, seemed to come from beneath it, patient and precise. He placed his palm flat against the metal. For a moment, there was nothing. Then, faintly, a pulse.
Almost got it.
Not mechanical, not random, but measured in a way that stirred something deep in his memory. He closed his eyes, counting without thinking. 1, 2, 3. The rhythm repeated, spaced evenly, like something trying to be heard. The dog shifted closer, pressing lightly against his side, a quiet reassurance that he was not imagining it. Caleb exhaled slowly, the air leaving him in a long, controlled breath. He reached along the edge until his fingers found a small indentation, almost hidden beneath rust and dirt. A handle. He hesitated, not from fear, but from the weight of knowing that once opened, whatever lay beneath would not be easily set aside. The rain softened, as if the world itself had leaned in to listen. Caleb wrapped his fingers around the small metal handle, feeling the cold bite into his skin as if the earth itself resisted letting go. For a brief moment, he remained still, listening. The faint pulse beneath the surface continued, steady and calm, like something alive but not in a way he could explain. The dog stood at his side, unmoving now, its gaze fixed on the lid with a quiet intensity that felt almost like expectation. Caleb tightened his grip and pulled. At first, nothing happened. The seal held firm, years of weight pressing it closed. He adjusted his stance, boots sinking deeper into the mud, and pulled again with slow, deliberate strength. This time, the metal gave way with a low, drawn-out creak, the sound cutting through the rain like a door opening after too long. The lid lifted just enough for a thin breath of air to escape from below, cool and dry, carrying a scent unlike the damp world above. Not decay, not ruin, but something preserved, untouched by time. Caleb paused, holding the lid halfway open, his chest rising with a careful breath. The dog stepped forward, lowering its head slightly, ears forward, listening into the darkness as if reading something unseen. Caleb raised the lid further, revealing a narrow opening beneath. A faint glow lingered below, not bright, but enough to outline the edges of a ladder descending into the earth. The pulse he had felt before seemed clearer now, not louder, but closer, as if it had been waiting just beyond reach. Caleb looked down into the space, then back at the dog, who met his gaze without hesitation. Something unspoken passed between them in that quiet exchange. Then, without another word, Caleb shifted his weight forward and prepared to step inside. The ladder was narrow, its metal rungs worn smooth by time but still firm beneath Caleb's weight as he lowered himself down one careful step at a time. The air changed almost immediately, cooler, still, carrying a quiet that felt different from the silence above. It was not empty silence. It was the kind that listened back. The dog followed without hesitation, placing its paws precisely, its body moving with controlled ease as if it had walked this path before. Caleb's boots reached the ground after about 10 feet, the space below opening into a small chamber carved cleanly from the earth. The faint glow he had seen from above came from a single light fixture mounted along the far wall, dim but steady, casting a soft amber hue across the room. It should not have been on, not after what looked like years of abandonment, yet it hummed quietly, alive in a way that unsettled him more than darkness would have. The walls were lined with simple shelves, each holding objects placed with careful intention. Old tools, neatly arranged. A folded blanket, untouched by dust. A small wooden table stood in the center, its surface clean, as if someone had left not long ago. Caleb turned slowly, taking it in, his breath shallow but steady. The dog moved ahead of him, nose low, tracing an invisible path across the floor until it stopped near the table. It lifted its head, ears forward, eyes fixed on something Caleb had not yet seen.
Just a little more pressure.
Then came the sound again.
Okay.
Not from the ground this time, but from within the room itself.
Looks like it's clearing up, boy.
The same steady pulse, closer now, clearer.
Yeah, looks like
Caleb stepped forward, drawn toward it without resistance, as if whatever waited here had already begun to recognize him. Caleb's eyes followed the dog's gaze to the far edge of the table, where a small object rested beneath the dim light. At first glance, it seemed ordinary, just a metal box no larger than a lunch pail, its surface worn but carefully maintained. Yet the sound, that steady, measured pulse, was coming from within it. Not loud, not urgent, but deliberate, like a heartbeat that refused to fade. Caleb approached slowly, each step echoing softly against the packed earth floor. The air felt heavier here, not oppressive, but filled with something unspoken, as if the room itself carried memory. The dog remained still, watching him now instead of the box, its amber eyes calm, certain. Caleb reached out, his hand hovering just above the surface before finally making contact. The metal was warm. Not from the air, but from within. He drew a slow breath, steadying himself, then lifted the lid. Inside, the glow deepened slightly, revealing a simple arrangement. A folded photograph, edges softened with time. A set of dog tags, resting neatly beside it. And beneath them, a small device, no larger than his palm, emitting that quiet, rhythmic pulse. Caleb's fingers tightened slightly as he picked up the tags, the chain slipping through his hand with a familiar weight. He turned them over, and the moment the engraved name caught the light, something inside him shifted. The past, which he had spent years keeping at a distance, moved closer without warning.
You're a good dog.
The dog stepped forward then, pressing
warm.
gently against his
We'll
leg,
get through this.
grounding him in the present. Caleb swallowed,
Almost
eyes
got it.
lingering on the name, the connection forming not through logic,
Just a little more
but through
pressure.
something deeper.
Okay.
Something that felt like it had been waiting all along.
Looks like
Caleb
it's
stared
clearing up,
at the
boy.
name etched into the metal, his breath slowing as recognition settled in,
Yeah,
not like a
looks like
shock,
it.
but like something quietly returning to where it belonged. The letters were worn, softened by time, but unmistakable. A name from another life. A man he had not allowed himself to think about in years. The photograph trembled slightly in his hand as he unfolded it, revealing two figures standing side by side under a pale desert sky, both younger, both untouched by what would come later. One of them was him. The other wore the same tags now resting in his palm. Caleb's jaw tightened, not from pain, but from the weight of memory rising gently to the surface. The dog beside him shifted closer, its presence steady, grounding, as if it understood the quiet storm moving through him. Caleb lowered himself onto the edge of the small wooden chair, the room around him fading into stillness as the past filled the space instead. The device in the box continued its soft, rhythmic pulse, no longer distant or strange, but familiar in a way that felt deeply personal. He reached toward it,
Keep
fingers
watch.
brushing its surface, and the pulse aligned with his own heartbeat for just a
Something's
moment,
down there.
as if two separate rhythms had found each other again. Caleb closed his eyes, exhaling slowly, allowing the years he had carried alone to settle into something lighter. When he opened them again, the room no longer felt abandoned. It felt remembered. The dog lifted its head slightly, watching
What
him,
is this?
not with urgency, but with quiet certainty, as if this had always been the place they were meant to find together. Caleb sat there for a long moment, the photograph resting in his hands, the quiet pulse of the device now steady and
soft
familiar,
whimper.
like something that had finally found its way
You're a
back
good
home.
dog.
The
Don't
years
worry,
between
this'll
then
keep
and
you
now
warm.
no longer felt
We'll
like a
get through
distance,
this.
but like a path that had slowly led him here, one
Almost
step
got
at a
it.
time, even when he had not understood where he was going.
Just a little more pressure.
The dog leaned gently against him,
Okay.
its warmth grounding, its presence constant in a way that
Looks
asked
like
for
it's
nothing
clearing
and
up,
gave
boy.
everything. Caleb reached down and rested his hand along
Yeah,
its
looks
neck,
like it.
fingers brushing through damp fur that was beginning to dry in the still air below. "I think you knew," he said softly, his voice carrying a calm he had not felt in years. The dog did not move, but its eyes lifted to meet his, steady and certain. Caleb stood, folding the photograph carefully and placing it back inside the box, along with the tags, not as something to leave behind, but as something he no longer needed to carry alone. He took one last look around the room, the quiet order of it, the sense that nothing here had been forgotten, only waiting. Then he turned toward the ladder, the dog already stepping ahead, guiding without urgency. When they emerged back into the open air, the rain had stopped. The clouds had broken just enough to let a pale stretch of evening light fall across the ground. Caleb paused, breathing it in, feeling the weight in his chest settle into something lighter, something steady. The dog stood beside him, no longer abandoned, no longer lost.